Michael Gator to travel to London to obtain the memo from Steele. The memo may have passed directly from her to FBI leadership. Secretary of State John Kerry was also given a copy. Steele was already well known within the State Department. Following Steele's involvement in the FIFA scandal investigation, he began to provide reports informally to the State Department. The reports were written for a private client but were shared widely within the US State Department and sent up to Secretary of State John Kerry and Assistant Secretary of State Victoria Nuland, who was in charge of the US response to Putin's annexation of Crimea and covert invasion of eastern Ukraine, The Guardian reported. In July 2016, when the FBI wanted to send Gator to visit Steele in London, the Bureau sought permission from the Office of Nuland, who provided this version of events during a February 4, 2018 appearance on CBS's Face the Nation. In the middle of July, when Steele was doing this other work and became concerned, he passed 2 to 4 pages of short points of what he was finding, and our immediate reaction to that was, this is not in our purview. This needs to go to the FBI if there is any concern here that one candidate or the election as a whole might be influenced by the Russian Federation. That's something for the FBI to investigate. Steele also met with Jonathan Weiner, a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for International Law Enforcement and former Special Envoy for Libya. Steele and Weiner had known each other since at least 2010. In an opinion article in the Washington Post, Weiner wrote the following. In September 2016, Steele and I met in Washington and discussed the information now known as the dossier. Steele's sources suggested that the Kremlin not only had been behind the hacking of the Democratic National Committee and the Hillary Clinton campaign, but also had compromised Trump and developed ties with his associates and campaign. In a strange turn of events, Weiner also received a separate dossier, very similar to Steele's, from long-term Clinton confidant Sidney Blumenthal. This second dossier had been compiled by another longtime Clinton operative, former journalist Cody Scherer, and echoed claims made in the Steele dossier. Weiner then met with Steele in late September 2016 and gave Steele a copy of the second dossier. Steele went on to share the second dossier with the FBI, which may have been used to corroborate his dossier. Other foreign officials also used conduits into the State Department. Alexander Downer, Australia's High Commissioner to the UK, reportedly funneled his conversation with Trump campaign advisor George Papadopoulos, later used as a reason to open the FBI's counterintelligence investigation directly to the US Embassy in London. The Downer details landed with the embassy's then chargée d'affaires, Elizabeth Dibble, who previously served as a principal deputy assistant secretary in Mrs. Clinton's State Department. The Wall Street Journal's Kimberly Strassel wrote in a May 31, 2018 article, "If true, this would mean that neither Australian intelligence nor the Australian government alerted the FBI to the Papadopoulos information. What happened with the Downer details and to whom they were ultimately relayed remains unknown." Curiously, details surprisingly similar to the Papadopoulos-Downer conversation show up in the first memo written by Steele on June 20, 2016. A dossier of compromising information on Hillary Clinton has been collated by the Russian intelligence services over many years and mainly comprises bugged conversations she had on various visits to Russia and intercepted phone calls. It has not yet been distributed abroad, including to Trump. This concludes part 1 of our 2-part series on Spygate. In part 2, we will begin that episode by discussing involvement by the Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee, Perkins Coie, the Obama administration, Executive Order 13762, the media, foreign intelligence, Fusion GPS, Orbis, and Christopher Steele, plus spy traps, Pfizer abuse, and the insurance policy. Just before we finish, please remember to subscribe to Declassified, like, and hit the notifications button. I look forward to your company in part 2. Hello and welcome to Declassified. I'm your host, Gina Shakespeare. You are now watching part 2 of a 2-part series on Spygate, the true story of collusion, how America's most powerful agencies were weaponized against President Donald Trump. If you haven't watched part 1, I do recommend you go back and do so. In that episode, we covered the FBI, Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, the Department of Justice, the battle between Rosenstein and McCabe, and concluded with the State Department. Today in part 2, we will be covering the Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee, Perkins Coie, the Obama administration, Executive Order 13762, the media, foreign intelligence, Fusion GPS, Orbis, and Christopher Steele, plus spy traps, Pfizer abuse, and the insurance policy. Just before we get underway, please feel free to subscribe, like, and hit the notifications button. You can also find us on Twitter and Facebook. Let's get underway with this story written by Epoch Times contributor Jeff Carlson. Spygate will likely be remembered as the biggest political scandal in modern history. Obama administration officials actively colluded with the campaign of Hillary Clinton and foreign governments to affect the outcome of the 2016 presidential election. Unofficial intelligence, spy traps, and a politically funded dossier were used to launch a counterintelligence investigation and surveil the campaign of candidate Donald Trump. Efforts intensified following the election through the use of coordinated leaks and the ongoing creation of false narratives in the media. Jasper Fackett, chief editor of the American editions of the Epoch Times, along with Epoch Times contributor Jeff Carlson, have designed a comprehensive infographic to match this video and help you explore the connections of Spygate. The link for the infographic is in the description below. First up today, the Clinton campaign and the DNC. The Clinton campaign and the Democratic National Committee both occupied a unique position. They had the most to gain, but they also had the most to lose. And they stood willing and ready to do whatever was necessary to win. Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, Robbie Mook, is credited with being the first to raise the specter of candidate Donald Trump's alleged collusion with Russia. The entire Clinton campaign willfully promoted the narrative of Russia-Trump collusion, despite the uncomfortable fact that they were the ones who had engaged the services of Fusion GPS and Christopher Steele through their law firm Perkins Coie. Information flowed from the campaign, sometimes through Perkins Coie, other times through affiliates, ultimately making its way into the media and sometimes to the FBI. Information from the Clinton campaign may also have ended up in the Steele dossier. Jennifer Palmieri, the communications director for the Clinton campaign, in tandem with Jake Sullivan, the senior policy advisor to the campaign, took the lead in briefing the press on the Trump-Russia collusion story. Another example of this behaviour can be seen from an instance when Perkins Coie lawyer Michael Sussman leaked information from Steele and Fusion GPS to Franklin Foer of Slate magazine. This event is described in the House Intelligence Committee's final report on Russian active measures in footnote 43 on page 57. Foer then published the article, Was a Trump Server Communicating with Russia, on October 31st, 2016. The article concerns allegations regarding a server in the Trump Tower. The Slate article managed to attract the immediate attention of Clinton, who posted a tweet on the same day the article was published. Computer scientists have apparently uncovered a covert server linking the Trump organization to a Russian-based bank. Attached to her tweet was a statement from Sullivan. This could be the most direct link yet between Donald Trump and Moscow. Computer scientists have apparently uncovered a covert server linking the Trump organization to a Russian-based bank. The secret hotline may be the key to unlocking the mystery of Trump's ties to Russia. It certainly seems the Trump organization felt it had something to hide, given that it apparently took steps to conceal the link when it was discovered by journalists. These statements, which were later proven to be incorrect, are all the more disturbing with the hindsight knowledge that it was a senior Clinton DNC lawyer who helped plant the story. And given the prepared statement by Sullivan, the Clinton campaign knew this. This type of behaviour would be engaged in repeatedly, damning leaks leading to media stories followed by ready attacks from the Clinton campaign. Alexandra Chalupa is a Ukrainian-American operative who was consulting for the Democratic National Committee. Chalupa met with top officials in the Ukrainian embassy in Washington in an effort to expose ties between Trump, Paul Manafort and Russia. Chalupa began investigating Manafort in 2014. In late 2015, Chalupa expanded her opposition research on Manafort to include Trump's ties to Russia. In January 2016, Chalupa shared her information with a senior DNC official. Chalupa's meetings with the DNC and Ukrainian officials would continue. On April 26, 2016, investigative reporter Michael Isakoff published a story on Yahoo News about Manafort's business dealings with Russian oligarch Oleg Deripaska. It was later learned from a DNC email leaked by WikiLeaks that Chalupa had been working with Isakoff, the same journalist Christopher Steele leaked to in September 2016. Manafort would later be indicted for Foreign Agents Registration Act violations that occurred during the Obama administration. Next up, Perkins Coie. International law firm Perkins Coie served as the legal arm for both the Clinton campaign and the DNC. Ties to Perkins Coie extended beyond the DNC into the Obama White House. Bob Bauer, a partner at the law firm and founder of its political law practice, served as White House counsel to President Barack Obama throughout 2010 and 2011. Bauer was also general counsel to Obama's campaign organization, Obama for America, in 2008 and 2012. Perkins Coie partners Mark Elias and Michael Sussman each played critical roles and were the ones who hired Fusion GPS and Steele. Sussman personally handled the alleged hack of the DNC server. He also transmitted information likely from Steele and Fusion GPS to James Baker, then chief counsel at the FBI, and to several members of the press. According to a letter dated October 24, 2017, written by Matthew Geringer, general counsel at Perkins Coie, the firm was approached by Fusion GPS founder Glenn Simpson in early March 2016 regarding the possibility of hiring Fusion GPS to continue opposition research into the Trump campaign. Simpson's overtures were successful, and in April 2016, Perkins Coie hired Fusion GPS on behalf of the DNC. Sometime in April or May 2016, Fusion GPS hired Christopher Steele. During this same period, Fusion also reportedly hired Nellie Orr, the wife of Associate Deputy Attorney General Bruce Orr. Steele would complete his first memo on June 20, 2016, and send it to Fusion via enciphered mail. Perkins Coie appears to have also been acting as a conduit between the DNC and the FBI. Documents suggest that Sussman was feeding information to FBI General Counsel James Baker and at least one journalist ahead of the FBI's application for a FISA warrant on the Trump campaign. The information provided by Sussman may have been used by the FBI as corroborating information. Next up, the Obama administration. The Obama administration provided a simultaneous layer of protection and facilitation for the entire effort. One example is provided by Section 2.3 of Executive Order 12333, also known as Obama's Data Sharing Order. With the passage of the order, agencies and individuals were able to ask the NSA for access to specific surveillance simply by claiming the intercepts contained relevant information that was useful to a particular mission. Section 2.3 had been expected to be finalised by early to mid-2016. Instead, Director of National Intelligence James Clapper didn't sign off on Section 2.3 until December 15, 2016. The order was finalised when Attorney General Loretta Lynch signed it on January 3, 2017. The reason for the delay could relate to the fact that while the executive order made it easier to share intelligence between agencies, it also limited certain types of information from going to the White House. An example of this was provided by Evelyn Farkas during a March 2, 2017 MSNBC interview where she detailed how the Obama administration gathered and disseminated intelligence on the Trump team. I was urging my former colleagues, and frankly speaking, the people on the Hill, get as much information as you can, get as much intelligence as you can before President Obama leaves the administration. The Trump folks, if they found out how we knew what we knew about the Trump staff's dealing with Russians, they would try to compromise those sources and methods, meaning we would no longer have access to that intelligence. That's why you have the leaking. Many of the Obama administration's efforts appear to have been structural in nature.